My name is Sophie Evans. I'm 32, and I've always thought of myself as careful, practical, the kind of person who plans everything down to the last detail. For the past several years, I've been the one everyone relied on, paying bills, covering emergencies, supporting dreams that weren't mine. And yet, apparently, none of that mattered. I arrived at Matteo's, the Italian place I'd reserved and paid for a family reunion. The parking lot was empty, the kind of silence that makes your stomach twist. No familiar cars, no laughter spilling out of the restaurant, no cousins hanging by the dumpsters pretending they weren't there. Just nothing. I checked my phone. Friday, 7 o'clock p.m. Can't wait to see everyone. Love, Mom. Exactly as she'd sent 2 weeks ago. I arrived right on time, like an idiot who still believed in family. The hostess barely glanced up when I approached. Can I help you, ma'am? The Evans party? Private dining room? She scanned her list. Oh, that was last night. I froze. No, it's tonight. I booked it. I paid the deposit. Her head tilted, a faintly amused expression. Ma'am, there were 16 people. Big cake. Your mom brought place cards. Are you sure you're not confused? I laughed, a dry, brittle laugh that didn't reach my eyes. No, I'm not confused. She paused, awkward now. Do you want to call someone? I was already dialing. My mom picked up after 2 rings. Hi, sweetie, she said, her voice too light, too casual. Everything okay? Where is everybody? I asked, calm on the surface but trembling underneath. A pause. Then that airy little laugh she always used when she knew she'd messed up. Oh, honey, it was yesterday. We thought you weren't coming. But don't worry, we'll bring you leftovers. I stared at the phone. What? It was yesterday. We'll bring you leftovers. She said it like it was nothing. Like I was nothing. I didn't even say goodbye. Hung up. No one called back. Not Mom, not Vanessa, not anyone. Then a text popped up. Vanessa. Bro, you seriously missed it. Classic. Don't worry. We saved you a roll. My hand shook. Cold or rage, I couldn't tell. I looked at the hostess. They came. They ate. They left. She shrugged. Looked like they had fun. Of course they did. They always did when I wasn't there. I didn't go home. I sat in my car, engine off, staring at my reflection in the windshield, thinking about the $1,740 I'd spent on a dinner they had intentionally excluded me from, thinking about every wire, Venmo, and cash transfer I'd made for the last 5 years. I'd been the good one, the responsible one, the silent bank and caregiver, and now they were finally honest about it. I didn't matter. I remembered the first time I realized it. I had called Mom, proud about my first real job. Her response? Great. Now you can finally help Vanessa with rent. That one sentence had set the tone for the next 5 years. I give, I suffer, I disappear. My contributions were never acknowledged, only expected. One night, 2 years ago, I wired $600 for Vanessa's emergency vet bill. Later that day, she posted a story on Instagram. New shoes, nails, champagne, and a guy's hand wrapped around a glass. I showed Mom. She scrolled, smirked, and said, You girls always get so petty about money. Petty, me, bleeding while she lived like nothing had happened. Me, footing property taxes, bills, emergencies, and vacations disguised as gifts. And the unspoken truth? They never noticed. They never cared. That night, in the Matteo's parking lot, I realized I was done being invisible, done being the good daughter. Tomorrow they'd learn what it feels like when I stop playing my role. I didn't sleep that night, not from sadness, not even from anger. I was calculating. I went over the bill again. 16 people, appetizers, cake, special accommodations for Vanessa's vegan whims, and Aunt Mary's wine allergy. They didn't just forget me. They did it on purpose. The next morning, I sent a message in the family group chat. Sophie, let's meet at Mom's tonight, 7 p.m. I have something for you. No one asked what it was. Of course they didn't. They never asked when it came to me. By 6:58 p.m., I pulled into my parents' driveway. Inside, the usual scene. Vanessa on her phone, Mom fluffing pillows like company was arriving, Dad in his recliner with a beer. They barely glanced up. I placed a thick envelope on the coffee table and sat down slowly, deliberately. What's this? Mom asked. I leaned forward. It's a bill. Dad scoffed. A bill for what? For the dinner I paid for. the one you all enjoyed without me. Vanessa laughed nervously. You're joking. No, my voice was steady. I'm giving you the opportunity to pay because from now on, anything you want from me comes with an invoice. Silence. Then Dad leaned forward. Son, we're family, right? Family? I echoed. The same family that intentionally excluded me from a reunion I paid for. The same family that drained me financially and emotionally for years. That's family? Vanessa rolled her eyes. Oh, come on. No one made you pay. That was the moment something inside me snapped. I stood up. You know what? Fine. Let's talk about what no one made me do. I wasn't made to pay your rent for 2 years. I wasn't made to cover your overdraft fees, replace your transmission, or handle every emergency that popped up while you lived your life. Dad's face turned red. Watch it. No, I said, calm, collected. I'm just getting started. I pulled out a printed folder from my bag, placing it carefully on the table. What's this now? Dad barked. I smiled. Documentation. Every wire, Venmo, Cash App, receipt, every single transaction over the last 5 years. I've been protecting myself. This morning I filed a fraud report. Mom's voice dropped. Fraud? What are you talking about? I looked her straight in the eye. Someone opened a credit card in my name. The billing address? Yours. I called the credit company. They're investigating. You, Vanessa, and Dad are all on record now. And if you think I won't press charges, try me. Vanessa froze. Dad sputtered. Mom cried. But I just stood there, steady, cinematic, finally untouchable. For once I wasn't invisible. For once I was untouchable. I didn't realize it then, but that envelope on the coffee table was more than a bill. It was a reckoning. For years, I had been the invisible daughter, the silent provider, the one who suffered in the shadows while my family thrived. Every dollar, every favor, every sacrifice had gone unnoticed, or worse, taken for granted. It started in small ways. I called Mom once to share the news about my first real job. Her response? Great, now you can finally help Vanessa with rent. That one sentence crystallized the rules of our family. Give, bleed, disappear, repeat. I learned early that love in my family only flowed one way, into their hands. Vanessa had always been the golden child, the one who needed a little help to get started. I was the one who needed nothing. That was their code for survive without love because we won't waste any on you. Every emergency became my responsibility. 1 month of rent became a year, then bills, then dental surgery, then car insurance, then textbooks for a new nursing program. Vanessa dropped halfway through the semester, never refunded. I paid because I thought that's what love meant. But love in my family was transactional. My sacrifices were invisible, my boundaries irrelevant. I remember the night I wired $600 for Vanessa's emergency vet bill. Later that day, she posted a story on Instagram. New shoes, nails, champagne. I showed Mom. She scrolled, smirked, and said, You girls always get so petty about money. Petty. Me, bleeding while she lived her life like nothing had happened. One Christmas, I maxed out my savings for gifts. Thoughtful, expensive, painstakingly chosen gifts for everyone. What did I get in return? A framed photo of a family I wasn't in. Invisible, unacknowledged, expendable. And the whispers I overheard, oh, they cut deeper than any outright insult. About 6 months ago, I stayed at my parents' house for the weekend. I had just helped Vanessa with $2,200 because she overdrafted again. I went downstairs to grab water and froze in the hallway. Voices carried. Vanessa, she's obsessed with being the martyr. It's pathetic, Vanessa sneered. She acts like she's some kind of savior because she pays for everything, Dad laughed. Let her pay. She's not going to find a husband anyway. Might as well be useful. You know she thinks we'd fall apart without her, Vanessa snorted. Please. If she disappeared tomorrow, I wouldn't even notice. I didn't enter the room. I went back upstairs, lay on my bed, stared at the ceiling, and felt the slow burn of every year, every sacrifice, every invisible bill. The next morning, Mom made pancakes like nothing had happened. After that, I stopped sending money for about 2 weeks. Vanessa texted, desperate, Sophie, I need help with rent. I'll pay you back, promise. I ignored her. Then Mom called, using that soft, guileful voice. Sophie, Vanessa's behind on bills. She's in a really bad place. You know she's sensitive. Why are you being cold? I just can't keep doing this, I said. If you're punishing us for raising you, maybe we shouldn't have bothered, she hissed. That broke me more than I admitted at the time. And yes, I sent the money later that day. That was the pattern of my life. Bleed, bend, break. And now, the dinner at Mateo's was the final straw. They had excluded me from a gathering. I paid for, intentionally, knowingly, leftovers, like I was nothing more than a wallet with arms. I sat in my car outside Mateo's that night, silent, not crying, not screaming, just thinking. About every time I had been the good one and what it had cost me. The bills, the emergencies, the sacrifices, they had all come at the expense of my peace, my self-respect, my life. Tomorrow, I decided, I wouldn't be the good one. Tomorrow, they would learn what it feels like when I stop playing my assigned role. I spent that night mapping it out. My plan wasn't revenge, it was reclamation. Every dollar they'd taken, every emotional manipulation, every slight ignored, every whispered insult, it was all accounted for. I would no longer give blindly, I would no longer disappear. And the first step was that envelope, the bill. Documentation of every single transaction, every wire, Venmo, Cash App, every receipt. A record of a lifetime of sacrifice. But this wasn't about money, it was about acknowledgement, about finally making them see me as someone who mattered. When I arrived at Mom's that evening, the tension was palpable. Vanessa scrolled through her phone, Mom fussed with pillows, Dad sipped beer in his recliner. I placed the envelope on the table deliberately, calmly. "What's this?" Mom asked. "A bill," I said, my voice steady. "A bill for what?" Dad barked. "For the dinner I paid for, the one you all enjoyed without me. And for all the years of sacrifices, of being invisible, of paying for emergencies that weren't mine. From now on, anything you want from me comes with an invoice." Vanessa rolled her eyes. "Oh, come on." "No," I said, standing tall. "I'm serious. And if you think I won't take action when it comes to protecting myself, think again." Mom's face paled, Dad's jaw clenched, Vanessa froze. I finally felt something I hadn't felt in years. Power. I wasn't invisible anymore. I wasn't the good daughter, the silent bank, the martyr. I was Sophie Evans, and I had finally decided to exist for myself. The next morning, my phone buzzed. Private number. I hesitated, then answered. "Hello, is this Sophie Evans?" a firm voice asked. "Yes," I said cautiously. "This is Officer Reynolds, local precinct. We're following up on a report of financial fraud involving a credit card opened in your name. Your family's address was listed as the billing address. We'll be visiting the property today for a statement." I didn't flinch. Silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. The officers arrived promptly. 2 of them, one male, one female, polite, professional, direct. They presented themselves calmly, but every word carried weight. "We're here regarding an identity theft claim. A credit card was opened in Sophie Evans's name and used for over $4,000 in purchases tied to this address," they explained. Mom froze. Vanessa's face drained of color. Dad looked ready to argue, but the officers didn't flinch. They asked each family member who had access. Mom's voice was defensive, too light, too quick. "There must be some mistake. We're a good family." I stayed quiet, watching them squirm. I didn't need to speak. The facts did the talking. Within 5 minutes, the evidence was overwhelming. Text messages surfaced. Vanessa had been using my information to fund personal expenses, all while claiming gifts came from friends. The officers documented everything. Vanessa cracked first. "It's not just fraud, she always helps. She's too nice." I didn't respond. I let the officers guide the truth into the room. Mom's composure shattered. "You're destroying this family," she cried. "No," I said, calm, firm. "I'm saving myself from it." And in that moment, the family's facade finally broke. The quiet ones began to speak. My cousin Luke, who rarely uttered a word at family events, spoke up softly. "I'd like to pay my share of the dinner. I know I should have said something, but they planned to exclude you. I was there when they joked about it. I'm sorry." For the first time that night, I smiled. It wasn't victory, it was acknowledgement. Even the silent ones eventually speak. And when they do, the lies, the manipulation, the gaslighting have nowhere to hide. The rest of the day was chaos. Voicemails, frantic calls, tears, and anger. My family's world tilted, slowly, irreversibly, and I felt nothing but calm. Weeks later, the detective confirmed the charges could proceed. I asked him to wait. A day. That day, my phone exploded. Mom, Vanessa, Dad, all begging, pleading, panicking, but I didn't respond immediately. I had learned the hard way that my silence was stronger than my words, my boundaries stronger than my love. I didn't need to justify my choices. I didn't need to beg them to see the truth. Eventually, I made the call. Yes, I said to the detective, proceed, but I want it on record. If anyone touches anything in my name again, I want it charged. Mom tried one last manipulation, voice soft like silk over a blade. Sophie, let's fix this. Come to the house. Let's talk face to face. Against my better judgment, I went. I walked in expecting chaos. I found theatrics. Vanessa huddled under a blanket, playing the victim. Mom's worried matriarch act was in full swing. Dad barely acknowledged my presence. We just want to heal, Mom said, reaching for my hand. No, I said, stepping back. Vanessa did this, and you all enabled her. Healing isn't what I'm here for. Accountability is. Vanessa's voice cracked. I didn't think you'd actually go to the cops. Someone has to, I replied. I've been silent too long. And then I left again, this time for good. The aftermath was slow, like watching dominoes topple. The family scrambled to cover payments, apologize, rationalize, and repair reputations, but I had stepped out of the role they'd written for me. I wasn't their bank, their silent martyr, their good daughter anymore. 3 weeks later, I found peace. A new apartment, a new town, furniture I bought with my own hands, grocery aisles I navigated for myself, silence that was mine, unbroken, undisturbed. And then a handwritten letter arrived. No return address. Inside, a check, half the amount of Mateo's dinner. The note read, I don't expect you to forgive me, but thank you for doing what I never had the courage to. Luke. I smiled. He didn't owe me anything, but he got it. The rest? Silent. Not for birthdays, not Christmas, not even Dad's surgery. Their absence became the air I breathed. I realized something crucial. Blood may be thicker than water, but loyalty chosen is thicker than DNA. The family that used me, manipulated me, and gaslighted me, they lost me. And for once, I was enough, just as I was. The day I left my parents' house for good, I felt an unfamiliar weight lift from my chest. Not sadness, not anger, relief. It was the kind of calm that comes after a storm, when the winds finally stop tearing at your skin. I moved out of state 2 weeks later. A small town, quiet streets, friendly neighbors. Rent was half of what I'd been paying back home. The apartment smelled like fresh paint and new beginnings. I spent the first weekend assembling IKEA furniture, listening to music I hadn't played since college, and for the first time in years, not answering anyone else's urgent demands. I realized how much of my life had been spent surviving for others, patching their mistakes, soothing their guilt, and ignoring my own needs. I had spent decades proving my worth to a family that only counted me when it was convenient. Now, the silence was mine, unbroken and sacred. A few weeks into my new life, a letter arrived. No return address. I opened it carefully. Inside was a folded note and a check, half the amount of Mateo's dinner. The note read, I don't expect you to forgive me, but thank you for doing what I never had the courage to. Luke. I smiled, heart warming with quiet gratitude. He didn't owe me anything, but he acknowledged the truth. The rest? Silent. Not for birthdays, not Christmas, not even for Dad's surgery later that year. They hadn't called, they hadn't reached out, and that was fine. I started rebuilding, piece by piece. Grocery runs became meditative walks through aisles of freedom. My work became my sanctuary. I redecorated the apartment in shades I loved, not what anyone else thought classy was. I slept through nights without anxiety gnawing at me. For the first time in decades, I didn't have to explain myself. I didn't have to justify the life I wanted, the boundaries I enforced, or the choices I made. My silence had become armor, and my decisions became freedom. I reflected often on the life I'd left behind. The family who had gaslighted me, used me, and tried to shape me into someone they could control. I realized they weren't cruel because they wanted to hurt me. They were cruel because they couldn't see beyond their own convenience, their own egos. And I had spent far too long bending, sacrificing, and bleeding for their comfort. Life after the family was quiet, but it was also vibrant. I started to date again, carefully, choosing someone who valued me for me. a man, kind, patient, aware of my past, and respectful of my boundaries. For the first time, my heart wasn't cautious because it had to be. It was cautious because it had the chance to be free. I also reconnected with friends I had drifted from, people who knew my story but didn't judge me for it, people who celebrated me without expectation. It was a revelation. Love didn't have to come with strings attached. Sometimes I thought of Mom, Dad, and Vanessa. I imagined the chaos in their lives after my departure, the awkward silences, the unanswered calls, the family dinners missing someone essential. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. Their consequences were natural, unavoidable. I learned something vital. Being enough didn't mean being everyone's savior. Being enough meant being fully myself, without compromise or apology. My family may have lost me, but I had finally found myself. And in that discovery, I realized the most important truth. Freedom isn't just about leaving toxic people behind. It's about stepping into your own life fully, with courage, clarity, and love for yourself. Weeks turned into months, and the quiet of my new life settled into something profoundly reassuring. The chaos of my old family, the constant demands, the guilt trips, the invisible labor, it all felt like a distant storm I had survived. But life has a way of demanding closure, and sometimes closure arrives when you least expect it. One afternoon, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I hesitated, but answered. "Hi, is this Sophie Evans?" "Yes." "This is Detective Reynolds. We're following up on the identity theft case involving your family. I wanted to let you know that the investigation is complete." I felt a flicker of anticipation. "They've been formally charged," the detective continued, voice steady. "Your parents covered the fraudulent purchases with their accounts, but your sister Vanessa is on probation and required to attend financial restitution counseling." I let the news sink in. Not triumph, not vengeance, just a quiet, satisfying validation. Justice hadn't been about punishment for me. It had been about truth, accountability, and finally seeing the system recognize what I already knew. Later that week, I received a handwritten note from Luke, my cousin. "I hope you're happy. We all see you now. Luke." The sentiment wasn't apology. It wasn't a plea. It was recognition. And for the first time in years, recognition felt sweeter than love or approval. Life moved on. My apartment felt alive, full of color and light. Work thrived. I cultivated friendships without expectations, dates without fear, mornings with calm instead of anxiety. I learned to cook what I loved, not what would impress anyone. I slept through nights without waking in dread. And most importantly, I learned to protect my boundaries without guilt. My family had lost the ability to manipulate me, and in losing that control, they revealed their true colors. They weren't monsters, not exactly. They were simply incapable of valuing me the way I deserved. And I no longer needed them to. Months later, I ran into someone from my hometown at a local bookstore. She glanced at me, recognition flashing in her eyes. "You're Sophie, right? Vanessa's sister?" I smiled calmly. "No, I'm Sophie Evans, and I'm living my life." No explanations, no defenses, just a woman fully owning her existence. And as I walked out into the crisp autumn air, I felt it. The final weight lifted. The family that had tried to define me, drain me, and control me could no longer reach me. The irony was beautiful. They had spent a lifetime convincing me I needed them. I had spent a lifetime proving myself to them. And now, without them, without their approval or interference, I was whole. Sophie Evans, 32, free, unbound, unapologetic. Not a pawn, not a caretaker, not an invisible presence. Finally, fully, completely me. And in that freedom, I discovered the greatest truth. Sometimes losing the people who claim to love you is the only way to truly find yourself.